Hello, Aubrey. How are you doing this week?
I'm great. How are you, Jessica?
I am fantastic, and I am excited to answer a great student question. Guys, we have sort of a two-part series this week about speaking vocabulary.
Yes, and this is really vital. This student is thinking about, how to make the most of their time, maximize their time, because there is vocabulary that's likely to come up on every speaking exam. That is often what you want to focus your time on. Yes, you're going to need to learn a lot of topic specific vocabulary, but a lot of what we're sharing today, there's a good chance you'll use it on test day.
100%. So we'll read the simple student question in a second, but keep in mind that you don't know what topics you're going to be asked for. So as
Right.
we are teaching you guys the most common vocabulary for all three parts of the speaking test, also keep in mind that you don't know what topic you're going to be asked about, right? So, Aubrey, how do students prepare for just to be ready for all of these topics?
Yeah. So, first of all, you need to be taking in a lot of English. We talk to you guys
Yeah,
about this a lot. You need to be watching TV in English, listening to podcasts, because then you're going to learn a variety of vocabulary. So, you have something to say no matter what the question is. But you also have to think about, what are like the adjectives and adverbs and linking phrases that are going to come
exactly.
up on every exam. You want to make sure you know those really well so that you're ready.
Yes, exactly. So, the vocabulary we're going to teach you today and on Friday's episode can be used, guys, on every speaking exam. So, this is from a student question that was asked during an IELTS webinar. So, thank you, Jelsine, for sending us this question. Jelsine asked, what are some of the common vocabulary words that can be used in speaking parts one, two, and three? So we're going to go through parts one and two today. And then on Friday, we're going to teach you about part three.
Yeah, so this is going to be really helpful because everything we're going to share today, like Jessica said, is going to come up on every IELTS exam. For part one, we're going to share the four common, very low scoring words that come up on every exam and give you band 9 alternatives, right? So, first, let's dive
Exactly.
in with big. If you find yourself about to say big, stop. Don't stop, but like replace it quickly with something higher scoring.
There are so many great big words, right?
Yes.
So gargantuan, that's the first one we want you to learn because it's super fun. But guys, there's so many, right? Like massive. That's one of my favorite words.
I know, right?
So
Enormous. There are
yeah,
so many and that are band 9 that students don't use as often, especially if you've already said big, don't repeat yourself, instead use one of
mhm,
these.
exactly. So instead of big, say gargantuan. Instead of small, say diminutive. Diminutive. I love that word. That's also a super fancy word. Instead of good, you can say phenomenal. And guys, we will put this in the blog post for this episode so you can see this
Absolutely.
list. So go to allearsenglish.com/IELTS. And this is episode 1449. So check out that blog post for this vocab. And here's my favorite word of today. What can we say instead of bad?
Heinous. This is
So
such a
good.
high scoring word. I've never heard a student use it, I don't think.
Yeah.
And but bad, good and bad, these come up all the time, right? You're sharing opinions. You're sharing your favorites of things on part 1. You're going to need to say big, small, good, bad. So be sure you're ready with these high scoring options.
Exactly. So I am going to do my best to spontaneously use all four of these words in a part one answer.
All
Ooh, kind of
right.
nervous. This is a
You
great
got this.
challenge.
Yes, it
Okay,
really
Aubrey,
is. All
what's
right, here's your
what's
part
my
1
question?
question. Do you exercise regularly?
Oh, I wish I did. I actually am a member at a gargantuan gym that's not that far from my house. But the time that I have available to exercise is diminutive, I would say. I do not have a lot of time. I know if I exercise more, I would look and feel more phenomenal than I do now. I wouldn't say I look heinous, but I could look better.
Nice. Well done, right? You guys can see how any question you were asked, you could, if you had these 4 top of mind, you could fit them in there because there are just so many you described the gym as gargantuan, perfect, right? It's pretty easy to fit these into any answer.
All right. So for part two, guys, of course, topics are many and varied, but the words that you can always use in part two are time transition phrases or time markers. So, Aubrey, what can we say here?
Yeah, so you want to be able to introduce a story when you're sharing what happened at first. And that word first, super low scoring. We often hear students say, First, I went to the airport, right?
Yeah.
So when you're wanting to share that something happened in the beginning, a really high level phrase is at the outset, which means
Yes.
the same as at first, at the start.
Yep, and it's so much more impressive, right? Than just be like, "First,"
Yes,
and then when you're talking about something that happens, like, simultaneously, right? 2 actions that are happening at the same time in a story, we can say, "Meanwhile," and here's the issue, is that students just don't use a lot of linking words in part 2.
right.
Right? And that is such a lost opportunity because the examiner needs to hear you use a variety of transitions throughout the speaking exam, right? The
Or what I
whole thing.
often will hear students do is say, then this, or
Right.
next this, and
True.
it's the same one over and over, right? Just like Jessica
Mhm.
said, you need a variety, and it will also help you move the story along so that you can provide more detail. We actually did a whole episode not long ago on meanwhile and similar phrases, so come back to the blog, allearsenglish.com, and search meanwhile. That one will
Awesome.
pop up for some great linking phrases.
Awesome, awesome. Yeah, guys, if you haven't checked out our blog, that is another fantastic resource. So definitely go
Yes.
to allearsenglish.com/IELTS to check out all of those posts. All right. So if you want to talk about what happened at the end of a story as a consequence, right? Consequence is also a great word, right? You can say consequently, or you
Yes.
could say as a result, and that's a great way to introduce, like, what happened because of all this other stuff. What was the ultimate result?
Yes, that's so high scoring and impressive. And you might be tempted to, if you're in that habit of just saying next or then, even when sharing a consequence, instead share this. What was the result, right? As a result or consequently.
It's
And
more
then,
specific.
yes, it's much more specific and it's going to pull out more specific details.
Totally, totally. All right, and then last one today, and then I'm gonna challenge Aubrey to try and use all of these. Um,
Okay.
so if you wanna talk about something that happened, much later, you wanna skip ahead in time, right? You could be like, "Eventually." So eventually means, like, after a long time, okay? So that's another great way to introduce a result or an ending to your story, but only if it happens after a long time, right?
Yes, exactly. This is good. Eventually, this is often you're sharing the lead up to something in a part two answer. Often you're sharing
Mhm.
lots of things that happened, and then this can kind of summarize it toward the end of your answer. Eventually, we decided to, and you share the end result.
All right. Now, Aubrey, you are going to try to use all of these in a story. Now, Aubrey, you don't have to do an entire 2-minute part two answer. Okay. We just want to model how to use these phrases for our students. So,
Perfect.
what if the question is describe an exercise routine you enjoy?
Okay. When COVID hit, we were at a loss for what to do as far as exercise. Gyms closed down. It was hot out in Arizona, so not a lot of options for exercising outdoors. And at the outset, we were really stumped. We decided to look into a Peloton bike. It was pricey. We kind of weren't sure we wanted to spend that much money. And there's a subscription. You have to pay pay monthly. So meanwhile, I was trying to walk. I was running outside, sweating profusely. It was not ideal. So we finally decided to take the leap and get this Peloton. Consequently, I finally started biking. I was saddle sore for a while because I had sat on a seat so rarely. But as a result, I started to get a lot more fit. So it ended up being a great decision. And eventually, we were both riding daily, and our routine was much improved.
Nice. That was
Yeah.
so good. I love
It actually
it.
really helped to have these as sort of like a map to know,
Yeah.
like, I need to say this next one, so I need to move along and share more detail.
Yeah, think of that list of time markers as a template, guys, and
Yeah.
just fill in the story facts that occur between each of those time markers, right? That's perfect. That's great.
Awesome.
Um,
I'm excited for you guys to practice your own answers using this vocab so that it comes so easily on test day. You can boost both vocabulary and fluency scores by using this higher scoring vocab.
Exactly, exactly. All right, guys. So if you have a question you would like to ask us, please go to support@allearsenglish.com and you can send us a message. And also, guys, stay tuned for Friday's episode because we are going to teach you the best, most common vocabulary that you should be using in speaking part 3.
Awesome. We will see you guys then. Thanks, Jessica.
Bye.
Bye.